me, it's a blessing that we did not get straight away into federal government, but we started off with the state government, and we're getting to learn the ropes of governance through the states, and we are then forced to get to know one another as far as PAS is concerned, with the DAP, with PKR. We are forced to work together. We are forced to get to know one another a lot better, and hopefully to shed all the inhibitions and all the mistrust and all the suspicion that's been the daily ration of Malaysian politics, where as far as the Malaysian public is concerned, there's always been a question of suspicion that's being built up by the Malay within the Malay community towards the Chinese towards the Malays, and towards the Indians, and all that sort of thing. So it's a learning process, and hopefully through this we can get to a situation where we are finally in a position to identify a proper shadow cabinet, right? Even as it is now at the state level, there's still, as far as Selangor is concerned, as far as even Kedah is concerned, the recent issue about the abattoir, and how it created so much tension within the Pakatan Rakyat, is a point in case, a case in point, because it's a case in point, where in actual fact, when all the facts were presented, then even the DAP said, okay, there's nothing wrong with what was done by the Kedah government, because it was an abattoir which was illegal and has been operating for the past 14 years. The operators were, this is a slaughterhouse for pigs, which was in Alustar, close to houses. Originally it was far, but after the Alustar was developed and all that, you got houses coming closer and closer. So after 14 years of operation, it was given 9 alternative sites which were proposed. They rejected all 9. Then in the discussion, they agreed to a grace period of 30 days, which after it ended, they were still there. So then the PBT, the local council, took action and closed down the abattoir. And DAP's initial response was, oh, you're not respecting the rights of the non-Malays or the non-Muslims. But after it was presented to them, the history, why it happened, and the fact that it's been operating illegally for 14 years, the fact that 9 alternative sites were proposed and blah, 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 and how that it was virtually only about 50 meters away from Malay-Muslim houses, then the DAP said, yeah, okay, fair. So what I'm saying is that there was a lot of, there was, not to say a lot, there is still an element of mistrust, an element of suspicion, which UMNO Barisan Nasional exploits and capitalizes on. The moment you've got a case similar to the one in Pulau Pinang, where the apa nama kampung tu yang pernah lupa, kampung Buah Pala was demolished, and then later on they found out that actually that land has been bought by Kusukun, and it's a private land, and there was nothing that the state government could do, because it is a private land, and that these were problems that were inherited by the new government, and which we had to handle. But given the fact that it was a private land, and it was it was owned by the developer and all that, so they had the right to act, and there was nothing much that the state government could do. But I mean, when all these facts were presented, then we understood that there was nothing contrary to our initial agreement that was done. The principles of justice, the principles of fair play, the principles of respect for all the races and all that were met. But just that when there was no clarification, and there was no the way the media was held, and there was no a briefing that was done prior to the actions, then this led to a lot of mistrust. So it's a learning process, And what we have to work on, to me, is the proper mechanisms for decision making and the proper mechanisms for conflict resolution within the coalition. We cannot deny that there are differences, right? But we have to learn how to the principle of agree to disagree, right, on certain issues, and on those issues that we can agree, that we can have a consensus on, then those are the ones that are going to be implemented. And I will say quite confidently that on probably 80 to 90% of the cases, once we sit down, we will find that we can achieve a consensus. Yeah, once the mechanisms are in place. Yeah, because I don't believe that the principles of Islamic justice contradicts the concept of social justice as we understand it today. Right? So when we sit down and we discuss, say for example, government grants for Chinese schools or for Tamil schools or for even non-Muslim places of worship, yeah, which are principles of justice, which has to be respected and upheld by any government which taxes its population, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, and therefore it has to provide to make sure that these issues or these items are being provided for by the government, right? So once we have all these mechanisms in place and we work at it seriously, I'm quite confident that 80 to 90% of all issues we can come to a consensus. And once there is a consensus, then that's not a problem. If there is no agreement, then I believe that what will happen is that the policies, there will have to be compromise, or current policies will just have to stay in place.
Before you come in, can I bring in Dr. Yunus? He's been wanting to...
Well, I have so much to say that it will take a couple of years. I'll just say briefly, the Malays are being divided and their downfall is very evident. The Malay eats the Malay.
Well, I think that's been happening for some time.
I know, but you are reinforcing it. Who are you working for? Is there an outside agency? Are you for Malays? Are you for Islam? No Muslim, no non-Malay would ever accept Islam in Malaysia.
Wow.
You're saying you're going to be able to work like the English history, the Catholics and the Puritans fought for 100 years till they killed the king. They couldn't even tolerate. What's happening in the Middle East? What's happening in the Middle East? Pakistanis are killing Pakistanis.
Yeah.
Where is that tolerance in Islam? I don't know.
Yeah.
And anyway, your vernacular schools should all be abolished, and I'll ask you a question now, and you answer it.
Okay.
Are you pro bringing back English, or would you be pro Mandarin? Thank you.
Pro again?
Mandarin.
Mandarin.
Okay. I think the Malays have been divided for some time.
No, you're doing worse job. You have
So,
nothing. You
now-
are slippery. You even have created a term like Malay Muslims.
Yeah.
What kind of creatures that? Malay Muslims. Is it like the terrorist Muslims created by the West?
Okay. So I think the Malays have been divided for some time. What we're trying to do is that we're trying to find a basis of unity for the Malays on principles of justice and on principles of good governance, on principles of Islamic values, yeah, which I believe are a lot more solid than that of Malay nationalism, which has been used for many years to justify injustice, to justify corruption, to justify a lot of deviation, yeah, where the Malays are asked to support a corrupt government, basically because it's Malay, right? So what we are trying... Okay. So what we want now is for the Malays who are Muslims to hold to the Islamic principles and to be united on the basis of the Islamic values, right? And I think this is the only alternative which is open to the Malaysians.